list. Now let me say one thing. If you're expecting some sort of balanced presentation between Exchange and GroupWise, you're in the wrong spot. I'm not here to do anything balanced. This is defense against Microsoft. This is showing you the lies, the truths, etc. about what's really going on so that you can make sure you've got the right choice. But more important, I also like to talk about the reality. Okay? One very good case in point. Let me just start off with one of my favorites. Does anybody know, and let's deal with Exchange 2003, because Exchange 2007 has been almost not deployed across the board for most people, right? Most people have Exchange 2003 or 2000, or even worse, 5.5, going back different technology. Anybody know the technological limit of an Exchange post office database? By the way, these questions mean rewards, shirts and stuff. So, anybody know the size, the limit of an Exchange database? Any answers? Any guesses? What's that? 70 gig? 70? 16 gig? No, it's not 16 gig. Close. If you answer what's on the outside of the box, I'll give you a shirt for knowing what's on the outside of the box as well.
60 gigabytes.
60 gigabytes, close. Actually, you're right in the middle of the two of them. But see, you participated, so we reward participation. Here's the answer. If you look on the outside of the box, it says 72 gigabytes for the size of the post office. That is a lie. How do we know it's a lie? Here's the test of a lie. If you call Microsoft technical support and say, I've got a problem with my post office, I may have some corruption, I don't know what's going on. The first thing they do is ask you some questions. What version are you running? No standard things you get with tech support. What version? How many post offices? How big of an environment? How big is the post office in question? If you answer any number larger than 32 gig, they tell you to reduce the size of the post office and call them back. Okay? Did I say they sat on the phone with you and provided good support? No. Reduce the size of the post office, split it in half or into thirds. Well, in half, because theoretically you shouldn't be at 70 gig anyway. Split the post office into 2 post offices and call them back. And I'll explain why, physically, technologically, why that exists. But when I talk about the reality of what we're doing for Exchange, those are the examples I'm going to give you. I'm not going to tell you what the product box looks like, because the box is made by a product manager. I'm a product manager. I know what they do. It's a lie. Because theoretically, they can get to 72 gig. But that's because they take a flawed model and duplicate it until they can try to get up to that large of a post office. But it doesn't actually get there. Because when they try to take a post office, and I'll talk about the file structure, when they try to duplicate that, it breaks. And the connection between the first post office file and the second post office file, that connectivity is common to fail. So as a result, if you've got a post office that's larger than 32 gig, that's the first indication of failure. They're not going to tell you what's going on. They're just going to say, cut your post office in half. If you can't get your post office up and working, they're going to tell you to use the repair tool to try to repair the post office. It can't be repaired. They're going to try to tell you to go find a backup that you can recover. It is the things that make GroupWise so great that cause the problems for GroupWise. Here's why. Number one, GroupWise just runs. How many hours of unplanned downtime did the Radicati group report that GroupWise had on an annual basis? Less than 1 hour worldwide average. 1 hour of unplanned downtime. Exchange, over 10 days. Okay? Now what does that mean? Okay? 1 hour of unplanned downtime, that sounds like a good thing. What it means is that most GroupWise administrators don't just do GroupWise. In the Exchange world, the average Exchange administrator supports 750 to 1,000 users. The average GroupWise administrator, if we only looked at sites over 1,000 users, supports between 4,000 and 6,000 users per administrator. As a matter of fact, I know of a university in Australia that has 17,000 users supported by a single GroupWise administrator on a single GroupWise post office. Now, let's compare what Exchange would have to do. In an Exchange world, 17,000 users would require 17 administrators. Okay? That post office would require, the average Exchange post office supports approximately 500 users, 498 to be precise. 498 users per server. We would need 34 servers and 17 administrators to do the job of a 3-server cluster, 1 post office, 1 administrator, GroupWise is 3. Here's the kicker. That guy just doesn't do GroupWise. He does GroupWise and SendWorks and Identity Manager. Does this sound like anybody else in the room? GroupWise administrators aren't just GroupWise. They're everything Novell. We know Linux, we know GroupWise, we play with all of the technologies. In a Microsoft world, Exchange cannot sit on a server with any other technology. So it's an Exchange server. That administrator, because of the amount of maintenance and administration and education he has to have, not only in the Microsoft technology, but in how to avoid the pitfalls of Microsoft technology, all that person does is Exchange. They're an Exchange guy. They do Exchange from sun up to sundown. When they're in the break room, having their lunch or their break, they talk about Exchange. When people ask them, what did you do today? They talk about Exchange. All you ever hear about is Exchange. Now, that sounds okay, but the real problem is this. GroupWise administrators never talk about GroupWise because it just runs. It just works. Email's up and running, GroupWise, great, love the thing, never have to touch it, never think about it, never tell anybody about it. Email just works. So now, you've got all these Exchange consultants who talk about Exchange all day long. That's all they do is Exchange. Who are now talking to the VP of sales in your company, or to the CEO or the managing director, or somebody making a decision. Talking about all these great things about Exchange, and how they can have Outlook, and how they can have all their technology from one vendor. The people that make the decisions in your company don't hear about GroupWise. Why? Because it runs. Why are we? IT people do not talk about stuff that just works. We talk about projects. We talk about catastrophes. We talk about rhinoceroses running into our servers. We don't talk about stuff that just works. Right? If we don't, it doesn't cross our mind too. So they never hear about it. So what do they assume? Email is email. They don't know any different than GroupWise. It just runs. So they're thinking in their mind, I get all of the it just runs of email that I have today, plus I get special deals from Microsoft. I get to go on special trips and events. I get to, have the integration with this other Microsoft technology that I want. I get to be on Outlook. I get all these great things, and I don't have to suffer anything because email just runs. That's the expectation. You wouldn't believe how many times in the last 3 years, I could probably quote 10 different executives who said to me, we migrated to Exchange thinking we were going to get all these positive things, and we're going to lose anything. And I lost my email system just working. That's where it came from.